Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Urafajisu, and on this channel I talk about immigration updates regarding Canada, my Canada journey, and a few tips here and there that has helped me in settling in Canada, things you need to do to settle in Canada, finding your way around, and information that could be very crucial or that could be very helpful in finding your way around and making best use of a system, well, to the knowledge that I know of. So, a big welcome. If you're new here, you're in the right place. If you're an international student or you just newly come to Canada or you're thinking or relocating to Canada, this is your one go to because I share it as it is. I mean, I share everything as it is. No filter, just the way it is to the best of my knowledge. I'm still, gathering knowledge as well, but I believe that the things that I've known that I've also learned from other people has been very, very instrumental to my ease of settling in Canada. If you're following me for some time, thank you for your frequent um drop buyers. People, you are the real MVPs. I'll say thanks a lot. I really appreciate the show of love and your support. So today I want to talk about today I'll be talking about express entry, Canada Express entry. What does it really mean? Now, I made several videos on how to come to Canada, several pathways to come to Canada, but I get these questions where people might, someone reached out to me and said, "Oh, she wants to come to Canada." I said, "Have you done this?" She said, "Yes." "Do you have this?" She said, "Yes." I'm like, "So, have you been in the pool?" She said, "What do you mean by pool?" Right? So, I am here to actually break it down and explain what the pool means, what the express entry pathway really is, and what it is made of. So today, what I'm talking strictly about the Canada Express Entry system, and this is from their IRC official website. I'm giving you full details of what it entails and how to go about it. Let's get into it. So yes, what is the Express Entry system? It's just an online system that is used to manage application of skilled workers all over the world for Canada. So we all know that Canada is a system that has been consistent with immigrations and taking in skilled workers from different countries, not just from Africa, but across Asia, Europe, and this has been on for many years, right? So the entry system is one of the immigration system where they used to manage immigration applications, right? For especially for people that are considering permanent residency in Canada. Express entry does not apply to you. You don't need express entry if you want to come study. You don't need express entry if you want to come work. But if you come work or you are in process of coming to work and you also are interested in getting your permanent residence, you might want to, also plan for this alongside. As a student too, you might also want to plan for this alongside. I've said that in my previous videos on even if you've been an international, so being a student does not hinder you from not being in the express entry pool. You can get your permanent residency even before you finish or you graduate as an international student in Canada, which is a plus for you, right? So there are three main immigration. So there are three main immigration programs under this express entry. We have the Canadian Experience class. I will explain each one at a time. We have the Federal Skilled Worker Program, which is like very, very common, and we have the Federal Skilled Trade Program. Now, this is how it works. You create a profile on the IRCC website. So if you hear me say IRCC, it simply means Immigrations, Refugees, and Citizenships Canada. So this is the body that actually deals with every immigration processes, which also includes either temporary or permanent residency, right? So you create a profile on the website and then you enter the poll. After which there's going to be several selections of rounds, and if you get selected, you get an invitation in the rounds. You fill out the application, you'll be given a website and the prerequisite for you to fill in, and based on the answers the answers you provided to the questionnaire, and based on the answers you provided to the questionnaire while you were opening your profile, you have to provide all these documents, right? So you're invited to apply. If you apply, you fill out the application, and then of course your background check, your biometrics will be taken. If you've done biometrics before, I think you have to do it again if you're applying for permanent residency. So the review application and the decision will be made, and I pray that it is a positive one. So yeah, so there is also a duration which varies by country, by the type of application, several things around the processing time for applications with the Canada system. So um that is not something to worry about. But because of course there is always a higher chance of getting approval when you do the right thing in applying for a permanent residency with Canada. And the fee that is included in any of this, I mean, in all PR applications, is 1,525 for applicants and spouse, and for dependent children, 260, just $260. Now, who is eligible to apply for any of this program? Now, for you to be eligible to apply for any of this program, starting with the Canadian Experience class. So this Canadian Experience class is for skilled workers who are already in Canada or who have been in Canada for some time and have work experience and all want to become permanent residents. I mean, some people might have probably left Canada after they had work experience, but if this work experience is over a period of time that is not so distant, they can apply under the Canadian Experience class, and you have to have a job that is within the tier 0 to 3. Now, there is a national occupation classification um on the IRC website where you can check the requirements for the skill work experience where you belong to. Now, you must have experience, and your experience can actually be in more than one. Like okay, so for example, let's say you're working as a manager or production manager somewhere currently, but you worked as maybe a supervisor somewhere. I mean, even if the occupation classification is different, the sum of your time for working in Canada, as long as it's up to 1 year or more, you're qualified to apply under this Canadian experience class. Now, you must have gained this experience by working in Canada by being authorized as a temporary worker, right? So, um, either you work temporarily remotely, either you work remotely or you work physically in Canada. As long as you're working for a Canadian employer, you are qualified under the stream. Now, you must show that you perform all the job descriptions of that occupation classification, the NOC, right? NOC classification, and most of the main duties that are listed there. Now, it must be a paid job that you earned wages and you are also taxed, right? Volunteer work does not count. Unpaid labors or internships do not count. And the total duration must be at least 1 year or equivalent of 1,560 hours, which is equivalent to 30 hours per week, which is like the average of a full timer in Canada, right? And this must be acquired in 3 years before you apply, like in the space of 3. And that's why I said, even if probably the person has left Canada maybe for a short period, it can't be more than 3 years, that the duration must be within the past 3 years of your application, right? So all this your experience must meet all the requirements for you to be eligible. Now, self-employed people and hours gained as a student while you're working does not count under this category. So if you're a self-employed, you cannot use this category to apply. If you are thinking, oh, I've been working as a student, it doesn't apply. Your hours or experience does not matter for Canadian experience class. It must be the hours you worked on a work permit. It must be total number of time years, year, or total number of hours that you worked on a work permit, right? Now, you have to fulfill the language eligibility. You have to show that you're eligible to come to Canada. Why this is funny, because for example, someone like me that came from a country whereby our first language is actually English, I find it very hard when they say we should write English. But of course, I have seen the importance of insisting. Although I feel Canada is actually liberal with some countries, because I've met several people in this Canada that don't understand 1 ounce of English. How they did it, I don't know, but that story for another day. But there's a language requirement for this category, right? You must have taken the approved test. The approved test is the CELPIP, PTE, IELTS. I think they're just that, the body, and then there's also the TEF, which is French, and TCF. So depending, but the three main acceptable one for Canada is CELPIP, IELTS, and PTE. And there's also a minimum score in all four abilities. So there are four components in the language test, which includes the reading, writing, speaking, and the listening. So you have to do all this in one exam, right? So there must be a minimum score for you to be able to qualify under this category. Now, if you're going to be in the tier 0 and 1 job, you need at least a band 7. So I need to hammer on this because sequel to what people say that, oh, if you have a 5 component in any of your components, you might not be eligible to apply for express entry. No, if your knock is 2 and 3, you actually need just a band 5 to apply. I was surprised when I realized that. So if you if probably you have a 5 and you have a 5 in any of a component, don't be discouraged. Enter the pool with it and just see how you can max out your scores. But that doesn't make you ineligible for the stream. So now you need a band 7 if you are if your job knock tier is 0 or 1, and a band 5 if your job tier is 2 or 3. The same applies for French. That's the language requirement. So for this particular stream, there is no education requirement. There is no compulsion of maybe if you study in Canada or something. No, there is no major education requirement. But if you want to improve your scores, the fact that you have a master's degree, you have a bachelor's degree, are additional points for you, right? And this will help you to max out your score. So that is that about Canadian experience class. So if you're a worker in Canada and you've worked for more than 1 year, still thinking of your the pathway to your permanent residency. Let's say you still have a couple of more years on your work permit. This is the time for you to take charge and do your English test, get into the pool. All you need is to have worked in Canada for at least 1 year in the past 3 years, and your English test. For you to max out your grading, you must also have a degree or a diploma, which will have to be evaluated by the World Education System. But if it was acquired in Canada, it's also a plus. I mean, those are what's now hard to boost your score higher, because we know that this pool is like how would I explain it? And that's why it's called a pool, right? It's like a lot of talent. Yeah, a pool of talent. So they pick the very best, they pick with the highest score. So people do several things to max out their score. People their English test to make sure they max out their score. People do other things. People even go as far as doing French just to be able to increase their scoring. So you might want to add your education, your master's, your bachelor's degree, your Canada education. I mean, everything that can, that it's under the scoring that can boost you to have a higher score. So I'm I'm going to look for the series of Canadian experience range they've done in the last 6 months or 1 year, and add it when I'm editing this video. Now you must be admissible to Canada as well, and you must plan to live outside of Quebec, right? So peradventure, if you are a provincial nominee, you must settle in a province or the territory that nominated you. That is that for the Canadian experience class. We're heading to Federal Skilled Worker Program. And this is one you hear people say FSW, FSW, FSW. So the Federal Skilled Worker Program is for skilled worker who have foreign work experience, not necessarily Canadian experience, and want to become permanent residents in Canada. So what are skilled workers? So skilled workers are choose based on education, the work experience, the language skills, and several other criteria, right? So they include the managers and supervisors. Canada is definitely looking for the best talent in every every sector, right? But I'm trusting that they will do better as the year goes by, so that this talent is actually really valued for coming over. Because imagine a doctor coming to Canada and end up working as a support worker, right? Because there's no proper system to integrate them in. I feel there should be things to do around these things, that when people come in with their profession, especially for regulated profession, they can probably do internship or understudy, several things. I mean, Nigeria doctors are amazing all over the world. Like, whenever, apart from funding for hospitals and stuff, having good doctors is not a problem we have with my home country. We have good doctors, but bad system where there's no provision, adequate provision for hospitals, and that's that about that. So um people in job who usually need a degree or college diploma or apprenticeship training. So, what is the minimum requirement for being a skilled worker? Now, you need to find out the national occupation classification for your job. So, the job must also be in tier 0 to 3. Tier 0 to 3. Now, if you ask me, what about other kind of jobs? There's how do I explain it? There's a provision made for other type of jobs, right? But these are federal skill. These are skilled workers, right? They have higher education, college diplomas, and have training like certified apprenticeship training. This the skilled experience must be in the tier 0 to 3, and they must have the same knock as the job that they want to use. So they must have the same knock as the job you want to use for your immigration application. So your primary occupation may not be your most recent work experience. So what I'm saying is the experience you're claiming for you to be able to tag with the tier 0 to 3 for Canada, you must have worked in it before, right? And that must tally. It doesn't matter if that is not your current job, but the fact that you have at least or a year or 6 months experience in that job in the last 3 years, you can apply for any category under IRCC from with the tier 0 to 3. I don't know if I'm making sense. So, for example, if you are a nurse, don't let me use nurse, that is far. Let's say if you are an engineer, right, and you want to apply under the STEM category. Now, a lot of people come up with different things these days. Oh, that wasn't my passion. But you've probably worked as an engineer for the past 2 years, right? And currently you're working as a makeup artist if that was your passion. Now, the fact that you've had like at least 1 year experience as an engineer qualifies you to apply under engineering in Canada, which will be under the tier 0 to 3 national occupation classification. I think that should help. So it doesn't have to necessarily be your recent work experience. You must just have had experience in that field that you are using as a bait, right? Yeah, for Canada's immigration. So you must have shown that you perform the actual statement of the NOC job description and done most of the duties. Now, this must have been obtained, yeah, it must have been obtained within the last 10 years in Canada or even outside the country. It must be paid, and it must at least be 1 year of continuous work. So your skilled work experience must meet all the requirements to be eligible. So with the same number of hours, 1,560 hours is the standard, which is equivalent to 1 year based on a 30 hours weekly full-time job, right? For part-time experience, as long as your part-time experience adds up to 1,560 hours, you can that is all you need to apply, right? You can have more than one part-time job as long as the cumulative hours you worked is 1,560 hours. Student work experience does not count here. So student work experience may count here if you were paid and if it was continuous with no gap. For example, people use NYSC, the National Youth Service Corps, as a work experience. So this can count. So student work experience under this category counts, right? And if you were paid wages and it was continuous with no gap in between for 1 whole year, you can use your NYC experience. So language ability, you have to also take approved language tests from the bodies I mentioned. And if you're also doing French from the bodies I mentioned, then you must have a minimum score in all your four abilities. You must have a band 7 at least, which is like the minimum. And you know, that just helps. If you went to school in Canada, you must have a certificate or diploma degree from a Canadian school, secondary institution, or post secondary institution. But if you have a foreign education, you must have completed your education credentials and an education credential assessment for immigration purpose, which is largely conducted by WES. And for regulated professions, there are other bodies that also conduct that. But the majority of degree evaluation is done by WES. So how is it being done? If you meet all the minimum criteria that I use in the selection factor point to assess your eligibility, you'll be assessed based on your selection factors and assign an overall score out of 100. Now, if you score 67, you may qualify for the federal skilled worker. You can also submit a profile to the express entry pool. If you score lower than 67 points, that means you won't qualify for this program. So these points are different from the points that I use. This particular point over 100 is different from the point that I use during express entry in itself. For this is just to grade your eligibility for this particular pathway. This for education is 25 points. So you must include your Canadian education or foreign education, right? For skilled work experience is 15 points, which is the maximum. For age is 12 points. For arranged employment in Canada is 10 points. So adaptability, that's 10 points as well. For proof of fund, you must show that you have enough money for your family to settle in Canada. You don't need proof of fund if you're already currently in Canada and you're able to work legally, and if you have a valid job offer from an employer in Canada. Is that for federal skill worker. So what are the key take homes? Do your English test, do your education evaluation, and get in on the pool. Now to the third one. The third one is Federal Skilled Trade Program. This trade program is for skilled workers who want to become permanent residency based on their qualification as a skilled trader. So the skilled trade sectors, they need specialized knowledge and hands-on work. Now, most of them will require apprenticeships, right? And skilled trade people may work in sectors such as construction, transportation, manufacturing and industrial, natural resources, and agriculture. Now, skilled trade workers experience, they have a breakdown of what's expected. So under these pathways, who tailors, hairdressers, this is under the pathway they can apply. Now you must show that you perform this action and the main duties listed under this fight to apply for federal skilled trade. Now you must show that you perform the action in the list statement. You must meet the job requirements for that skilled trade as set out in NOC. It must be a paid work and you must have obtained it in a country where you were qualified to practice. You must at least have 2 years of full-time work experience in a skilled trade within the last 5 years before you apply. So you must have been working maybe as a hairdresser or as a plumber for the last 2 years before you apply. Now, your skilled work experience must meet all the requirements to be eligible. So, like I said, it is 30 hours weekly that is counted for full time work. Time work experience is qualified, and student work experience does not count as a minimum requirement. So, what is required? You need a job offer or a certificate of qualification. You must have either a valid offer of a full-time employment for a total period of at least 1 year or a certificate of qualification in your skill trade issued by a Canadian provincial, territorial, or federal authority. Certification of qualification. So this proves that you're qualified to work in a certain skill trade in Canada, and this means you have passed a certification exam, you've met all the requirements to practice your trade in the province or territory that issued your certificate. So this certificate is usually issued by the provincial body that governs trade in your province or a federal authority. Now, to get this, you must have accessed your training. The federal authority must have accessed your training and trade experience and skill required to take the language test and So there's no requirement for education per se. But if you want to increase your ranking in the pool, you need to add your education, right? You need to study in Canada, you need to have foreign education like BSc, HND, and Masters. So proof of fund, if you're already in Canada, you don't need to show. But if you do, or if you are out of Canada, you have to show proof of fund, and you must also be admissible to Canada and not intend to work in Quebec or to live in Quebec. So these are the three categories under the express entry. And like I said, once you have been in the pool, you have to make sure all your documents are properly aligned. You need to monitor the IRS website to see the time they did draws and the average of what they are picking every time, so you can know how you best to increase your score and how to work on out on getting the best out of your scoring. So this is a direct pathway to permanent residency if you get invited. Also from this pool, people go in there, people under provinces go in there to pick, skill talents that they require. So being in this pool is very crucial because it's not just for the federal alone, even provinces go in there, they give nominations to people who have been in the pool already because they believe that they need their skill. So don't waste any further time anymore. Don't waste any further time anymore. Do all you have to do and get into the pool and hope for the best. So they've been, draws started right after elections again, and this is the time for you to see, okay, what's the scoring and see how you can actually max out the score. I am not an immigration consultant. Canada's process can be strictly DIY, but if you need a registered consultant, there are several that can be very instrumental to helping you in creating your profile and holding your hand to walk through the process of immigrating to Canada. So I hope today's video shed some light on clarity as regarding what Express Entry Pathway is, and I hope that it's able to help you to make the right decisions on what to do. This will be all for today. If there's any other thing, I'll probably do in the next video. Like I said, I'm also going to create I don't know, I'm having issues with screen recording on my system, but because it's better for me to do this on my system, right? um I'll see what to do honestly, and how you can create an express entry profile to get started with. So if this video was helpful to you, give it some thumbs up, share with your friends, subscribe, and comment below. Share your ideas, ask your question. I'll be willing to help. Thanks a lot for always being here. Thank you for watching till now. Bye and see you next time.